Hello my beautifuls, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. It's really great to have you tune in. So today we're going to be talking about a super creepy unsolved murder case. So I'm going to be going over the case known as the Black Dahlia. So let's get straight into it. On January the 15th, 1947, the mutilated body of Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia, was found in an open area in Los Angeles on South Norton Avenue near 39th Street. Her body had been severed into two pieces. Elizabeth, or Beth as she liked to be called, was apparently nicknamed the Black Dahlia by her friends. Elizabeth was born and bred in Massachusetts, but she later moved to Hollywood in pursuit of an acting career. She was born on July the 29th, 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts, and her parents' names were Cleo and Phoebe. In 1929, Cleo's father lost the family business due to the 1929 stock market crash, and in 1930 he faked his own suicide and left his wife and children to fend for themselves. In 1942, 12 years after he'd left, Elizabeth's father sent a letter confessing what he'd done and that he was alive and well and living in California, and that he was deeply sorry. Over the years, Beth and her father continued to exchange many letters, much to her mother's distaste, because she had never forgiven him for basically breaking their hearts, abandoning them, and leaving them with nothing. Eventually, Cleo asked Beth to move to California to live with him, and because Beth wanted to be, she was basically an aspiring actress and she wanted to be a star, it seemed like an opportunity that she could absolutely not turn down. And so she packed her bags at 18 and she left to move over to California. Over in California, things weren't going quite as planned, and her father were not getting on. Her father thought that Beth was messy, a freeloader, and very lazy, and they came to blows quite a few times, and eventually Beth decided to move out. From then on, Beth started to take advantage of the generosity of her many friends, and she was bouncing around between their homes, basically saying that she was going to stay for 1 or 2 nights, and she ended up staying much longer. The story seems to be that most of her friends thought that she overstayed her welcome, that she piggybacked off their fame and success. She also made a point of only surrounding herself with people that had already had that success. One of those people was Robert Red Manley. Robert already had a wife and a child, and he denied ever having a sexual relationship with Beth, even though they spent an awful lot of time together. Robert was the last person to see Beth alive. January the 8th, 1947, 8 days before her murder, Robert dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA. He stated that he believed that she was going to be meeting up with her sister, who was visiting from Massachusetts that afternoon. Staff at the hotel record Beth using the lobby phone, and she was also reportedly seen at the Crown Grill cocktail lounge about half a mile away from the hotel. On January the 15th, 1947, Beth's naked body was discovered on the corner of Coliseum Street and West 39th Street by local resident Betty Bersinger. She was walking there with her 3-year-old daughter. Bersinger, I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, first thought that she'd found a mannequin, and when she realised that it was actually a body, she ran to a nearby house and called the police. Beth's body had been severed at the waist and drained completely of blood, leaving her skin deathly pale. Now, medical examiners believe that she'd been dead for around 10 hours, which means that it puts her death somewhere between the evening of January the 14th and the very early hours of the 15th. It appeared that Beth's body had been washed by the killer already, and her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth up to her ears, creating the creepy effect known as the Glasgow grin. Now that actually creeps me out so much. Oh, it's so scary. She had several cuts on her thighs and her breasts, and entire portions of flesh had been removed. The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper, and her intestines had been tucked neatly beneath her buttocks. The news of this terrifying murder spread quickly, and soon a crowd had formed of both passers-by and reporters. Aggie Underwood from the LA Herald Express was among the first to arrive, and she took several photos of the body in the crime scene. Now, I just want to say here that I'm not going to put up any images of Beth's body in my video because at the end of the day, I know it was a long time ago, but she's still a person, and the images are really quite graphic and quite gruesome, and they're quite shocking, and I know that once you see them you cannot unsee it, and I don't want to be responsible for putting those images in somebody's brain unexpectedly. So I will pop a link below. If you do want to check them out, you can just click on that link and have a look if you're interested. So Beth's father refused to come and identify his daughter's body, and it was obviously left to Beth's mum to come and do. But the way that Phoebe found out about Beth's murder is in my opinion, absolutely despicable, to say the least. So what happened is that reporters gave her a call. They rang her up and they told her that that Beth had won a beauty pageant, and they were just prying and asking lots of personal information about her, etc, etc. And when they got all the information that they actually needed, they then told Phoebe that Beth had been murdered. Obviously that's an absolutely devastating way to find out. I couldn't even imagine what that must have been like. So obviously she was devastated, but then they turned around and offered to pay for her airfare and accommodation if she would travel to Los Angeles and basically help police with their investigation. But that was actually another ploy. It was completely false because the newspaper kept her away and just wanted to get all the scoop for themselves. On January the 21st, 1947, a person claiming to be Beth's killer placed a phone call to the office of James Richardson, who was the editor of the Examiner paper. He was congratulating Richardson on the newspaper's coverage of the case and stated that he planned on eventually handing himself in, but he wanted to allow police some more time to pursue him further. Additionally, the caller told Richardson to expect some souvenirs of Beth Short in the mail, whatever that was meant to mean. On January the 24th, a suspicious manila envelope was discovered by a US Postal Service worker. The envelope had been addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers, with the individual words that had been cut and pasted from a newspaper. I guess so that they wouldn't be able to check out his handwriting or her handwriting, I guess. Additionally, a large message on the face of the envelope read, "Here is Dahlia's belongings, letter to follow." The envelope contained Beth's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, names written on pieces of paper, and an address book with the name Mark Hanson embossed on the cover. The package had been cleaned by gasoline, and similarly to Beth's body, which led the police to actually believe that this package had been sent by the killer. And despite efforts to clean the package by the killer, or whoever sent it, several fingerprints were lifted from the envelope and sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for testing. And here's the kicker. I actually can't believe this, but this is incredible. The prints were compromised on the way to the Bureau and they couldn't be properly analysed. So, I mean, they had one job. The same day that the package was received by the Examiner, a handbag and a black suede shoe were reported to have been seen on top of a garbage can in an alley a short distance from Norton Avenue, which is 2 miles from where Beth's body was found. The items were recovered by police, but they had also been wiped clean with gasoline, destroying any fingerprints. It's worth noting as well that the Herald Express received several letters from the purported killer, again made with cut and paste clippings, which one of them read, "I will give up on Dahlia killing if I get 10 years. Don't try to find me." On March the 14th, an apparent suicide note scrawled in pencil was found tucked in a shoe in a pile of men's clothing by the ocean's edge at the foot of Breeze Avenue in Venice. The note read, "To whom it may concern, I have waited for the police to capture me for the Black Dahlia killing, but they have not. I am too much of a coward to turn myself in, so this is the best way out for me. I couldn't help myself for that. All this. Sorry. Mary." The clothes included a coat and trousers of blue herringbone tweed, a brown and white Y-shirt, white jockey shorts, tan socks and tan moccasin leather shoes. Size was noted to be about size 8. The clothes gave no clue as to the identity of the owner. The Herald Express also received several letters from the purported killer, so there are a few different suspects. Police quickly deemed Mark Hanson to be one of them. He was the owner of the address book that was sent into the paper before, and his name was embossed on the front of it. So clearly he was a prime suspect. So Hanson was a wealthy nightclub and theatre owner and an acquaintance of Beth, and she often stayed with him at his house. It was also reported that there are also lots of other girls that stayed at his house as well, and it confirmed, and according to other sources, he also confirmed that the person the shoe discovered in the alley were in fact Beth's. So Anne Toth, who was a friend and a roommate, told investigators that Beth had recently rejected Hanson's advances, and he obviously wasn't very happy about that. Robert Redmanley was also a suspect, and he was investigated thoroughly, but he was cleared of suspicion after taking numerous polygraph tests. I'd be interested to see how accurate they were back in the 1940s, but who knows, who knows. Now, a third suspect who I actually think could actually have been the murderer, and his name is George Hodel, or Hodel, I'm not sure how you pronounce that either. He passed away in 1999. His son Steve Hodel is a Los Angeles homicide detective, and he actually accused his father of killing Beth and committing several other murders also. And there are a couple of significant things here to note. On February the 18th, 1950 to March the 27th, 1950, George Hodel, the father, was under surveillance, the LAPD. They wanted to see if he was going to make any comment about the Elizabeth Short killing. Most of what was heard was pretty mundane. However, there was one statement that was highly incriminating, and he said, supposing, I'm not even going to try and do an American accent because that would just be really offensive and shocking. So he said, supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. So prior to the Black Dahlia case, George was a suspect in the death of his secretary, Ruth Spaulding. So apparently she died of an overdose, but they weren't sure, so he was definitely investigated around that, but he was never ever charged. Steve, his son, claims that there was a secret room in his childhood home that no one else apart from his father was ever allowed to go into. And George also went to medical school as well, which could indicate that he would know how to dismember a body. Steve Hodel also claims that his father had a picture of Beth, but his family and also experts disagreed and said that it wasn't her, that they didn't actually know who it was, and the experts were about 85% sure that it wasn't, in fact, Beth. Fast forward to 2014, however, when the picture was actually looked at again by experts, and now they are 95% sure that it is indeed Beth. This is the photo. What are your thoughts? Do you think it actually is her? This is a picture that apparently Steve George had, and this is actually an official photograph of Elizabeth Short. One huge thing that happened as well was that Steve went back to his childhood home and he took cadaver dogs with him, and they picked up the scent of a dead body. So was that Elizabeth, or was it the scent of other dead bodies that had been there?
Despite mixed opinions on this theory, Steve Hodel has maintained a website, and it's got so much information on it. It goes into so much more depth than I'm doing here. So I would also link that below if you want to check out that website. It's really quite interesting and just a ton of info.
Over time, it said that about 500 people have actually come forward to admit to the Black Dahlia killing, and most of them were dismissed by police, A couple of them were not even born at the time that she was murdered, which is quite interesting. But that's apparently a common thing that some people do. They admit to things, murders that they actually haven't committed, which that baffles me. I have no idea what that's about whatsoever. Yeah, so I found that really, really interesting. But up until this day, the crime remains unsolved and there has been no justice for Elizabeth Short, which I think is really, really sad. And yeah, I just feel it would be amazing if that case could get solved. So if you are interested in this case, then make sure to check out Steve Hodel's website. And as I said, I've linked that below for you. And it just goes into far, far more detail than I could go to in this video. And that is it for another edition of True Crime Unsolved Cases. I really hope that you enjoyed that. As always, I really appreciate you and thank you so, so much for watching and supporting me. It means the absolute world. And as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and also click that notification button. But for now, have an amazing evening, morning, day, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Lots of love.